beliefs, human beliefs. Oh. Okay, so let's define what's superstition first. From the Oxford English Dictionary, it defined as unreasonable or irrational or groundless or fear, notion or belief without something unknown, mysterious, imaginary, especially in regard to religion, religious belief, or practice based upon fear of ignorance. In specific meaning, an irrational religious belief or practice, a tenet, scope, habit, etc., based on fear or ignorance. The Oxford Learner Dictionary defines it as the belief in view that particular event happen in ways that cannot be explained by reason or science, or that the belief that particular events brings good or bad luck. For example, breaking a mirror brings bad luck and so on. So this is called superstition. Of course, there's other dictionary usually have the same notation. A false conception about the causation or belief of the practice emanating from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance amongst to superstition. The Weber's also defines those notions which are maintained despite evidence to the contrary as superstitions. So most of this related to whether there's rational thinking behind it to give it a justification. So for example, the Cambridge also say the belief that is connected with all ideas about magic, same groundings in human reason or scientific knowledge. The Cambridge Dictionary further cites the American Dictionary defining superstition as a belief that explains the causes of events in ways that are connected to magic, which are not based on reason or scientific thinking. So identify something as superstition is generally as a pejorative items referred to as such is in common parlance are commonly referred to as folk beliefs. The Weber's Encyclopedia of Superstition points out that many superstitions are related to religion. People who have been carrying individual subjective perceptions vis-a-vis superstitions against one another. People of one belief are likely to call people of another belief superstitions. So in terms of religion and beliefs, some of them are held there without reason or evidence. In 1948, Skinner published an article in the Journal of Experimental Psychology in which he described his pigeons exhibiting what happened appeared to be a superstitious behavior. One pigeon was making turns in its cage. Another would swing its heads in a pendulum motion, while others also displayed a variety of other behaviors. Because these behaviors were all done virtuously in an attempt to receive food from a dispenser, even though the dispenser had already been programmed to release food at set time intervals, regardless of the pigeons' actions. Skinner believed that the pigeons were trying to influence their feeding schedule by performing those actions. He then extended this as a proposition regarding the nature of superstitious behavior in humans. That means sometimes we think, if we do something like this, we will have good luck and have a better outcome. And so we continue doing that. So this is similar to some kind of behavior of pigeons. That means it is quite natural for us to link causality between events by proposing something which may or may not be rational. But despite challenges to Skinner's interpretation of the root of his pigeons' superstitious behavior, his concept of reinforcement schedule has been used to explain superstitious behavior in humans. Originally in Skinner's animal research, some pigeons responded to 10,000 times without reinforcement when they were originally being conditioned on an intermittent reinforcement basis. Compared to the other reinforcement schedule, these behaviors were also the most resistant to extinction. This is called the partial reinforcement effect, and it has been used to explain superstitious behavior in humans. That means once you have a superstitious behavior, it is very difficult to change. From a simpler perspective, natural selection will tend to reinforce a tendency to generate weak associations that are overgeneralized. If there is a strong survival advantage to making correct associations, then this will outweigh the negativeness of making many incorrect superstitious associations. There are other theories proposing that, for example, in a recent theory by Jane Reason, proposed that superstitions are intuitions that people acknowledge to be wrong, but acquiescence to rather than correct when they arise as an intuitive assessment of a situation. Her theory draws on due process model of reasoning. In this view, superstitions are the output of system one, reasoning reasoning that are not corrected even when caught by system two. That means we are able to hold different ideas in our brain, and even one of the idea contradicts the other ideas. Sometimes we are still able to maintain the two ideas simultaneously in face of their contradiction. So that is a very interesting human psychology. So with that in mind, we come into the religion. Now, religion, we know, is a social cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, including morals, beliefs, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, and organization. Religion covers so much different human aspect. Therefore, there is no scholarly consensus over what precisely constitutes a religion. I think in the West, we recognize the religion as the most common religions, such as Christianity. This one? Christianity and so forth. But there are, in fact, thousands of different religions all over the world. The practice itself may include rituals, sermons, commemorations, variations, sacrifices, festivals, feasts, trance, initiations, funerals, marriage, meditation, prayer, music, arts, dance, I think because religion has evolved into a social activity, a social organization. Therefore, it encompasses a lot of different activities. There are estimated of over 10,000 distinct religions worldwide, and about 84% of people are affiliated with the major religions such as Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and some form of folk religions. So being religious is very much human in a sense. In an attempt to define religion, to find some distinct or possibly unique essence or set of qualities that distinguish the religious from the remainder of the human life is primarily a Western concern. Interestingly, in the East, for example, in China, we are not particularly religious. Yes, we have a lot of superstitions, but we don't have a very much organized religion. There is a very interesting difference from the Chinese culture to the Western culture. We know the Western culture evolved with religion almost since the Roman time, when Christianity becomes the Romans' religion, and then during the Dark Ages, the churches are a very important parts of the whole life in Europe, and then obviously in the recent times, Christianity spread all over the world. But in a absolute sense, the Chinese doesn't believe in a God except like what the West believe in a God. So there's quite some distinction there. The attempt is a natural consequence of the Western speculative, intellectualistic, and scientific disposition. It is also a product of the dominant of the Western religious mode, which is the Judeo-Christian climate, or more exactly, the theistic inheritance from the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The theistic form of religion in this tradition, even when downgraded culturally, is formative of the dichotomous Western view of religion. You either believe in God or you don't, but there are actually gray areas which you might, for example, my father isn't a Christian, but every Christmas he do go to the midnight mass. I don't know why, but he just like to do that. Okay, so again, so there are different grades of religion. The origin of religion is uncertain. There are a number of theories about how the religion started. The development of religion is also very much dependent on the culture. Some religion place emphasis on belief, while others emphasize on practice. Some religions focus on subjective experience of the religious individual, while others consider the activities of the religious community to be more important. Just like my father, he is not a religious in practice, but he found it as a ritual. I think because when he arrived Hong Kong, his first exposure to Hong Kong culture is the Christmas mass at night, and therefore he took it as almost his entire life in Hong Kong. Every Christmas night, he went to the same church for a mass. Other than that, he never go to a church.
Oh, well, I'm glad he enjoyed the Christmas mass.
Yeah, only the midnight mass. So he went to a church in Kowloon side, and I went with him about twice in my life. That's it. Some religions claim to be universal, believing their laws and cosmology to be binding for everyone, while others are intended to be practiced only by a closely defined or localized group. So, for example, Judaism is mainly practiced by the Jews. It doesn't extend outside the Jews, but Christianity, Islam, etc., believe that their law and their theory is universal to everybody. So there are, again, differences in terms of the religion. In many places, religion has been associated with public institutions such as education, hospitals, family, government, and political hierarchies. Again, it depends on different areas. For example, here a lot of private schools are run by the religious organizations, so are some hospitals, and many families are closely related to religion as well. So it all depends on the culture, I suppose. There are two anthropologists. they say that it seems apparent that one thing religion or belief help us to do is deal with problems of human life that are significant, persistent, and intolerable. One important way in which religious beliefs accomplish this is by providing a set of ideas about how and why the world is put together that allows people to accommodate anxieties and deal with misfortune. I think a lot of people in their most important part of their life, for example, marriage or death, they seek to religion for the ritual and for the comfort. Cognitive science of religion is the study of the religious thought and behavior from the perspective of the cognitive and evolution sciences. The field employs methods and theories for a very broad range of disciplines, including cognitive psychology, evolutionary psychology, cognitive anthropology, artificial intelligence, cognitive neuroscience, neurobiology, zoology, ethnology, There's trying to explain religion is pretty difficult because it has been intermingled with everything we survive our society. Another important thing is about the hallucination or the schizophrenia. So people, now one of the important episode here can be illustrated with a story from the Bible, the Genesis. The Genesis is the first book in the Old Testament. And there is an article produced by a lot of MDs and PhDs. So they are medical doctors. They are looking into schizophrenic episode in Genesis. They look at quite a number of the characters in the Genesis, but I'm only selected one of the characters to concentrate on. The authors analyzed the religious figures such as Abraham, Moses, Jesus, St. Paul from a behavioral, neurological, and neuropsychiatric perspective to determine whether new insights can be achieved about the nature of their revelations. Analysis reveals that these individuals have experiences that resemble those now defined as psychotic symptoms, suggesting that their experiences may have been manifestation of primary or mood disorder associated psychotic disorders. Look at this, describing them as in a very bad light. Okay, let's look at just Abraham. The Bible is the earliest source of information about the life of Abraham. The historical existence of Abraham is a subject of some academic controversy. Our discussion will proceed on the premise that he was a historical figure. Okay, so this passage comes from the scientific article itself. Okay. The events occurring during his lifetime were generally thought to have been taken sometime between 2000 BCE and 1630 BCE, but this is a subject of some debate. He described as having had interactive mystical experiences of an auditory and visual nature that influenced his behavior throughout most of his life. So let's look at the diagnostic criteria of schizophrenia. There are 5 different characteristics. The first is 2 or more of the following: delusion, hallucination, disorganized speech, grossly disorganized behavior, negative symptoms such as affection, threatening, and then in this case, only one of them is necessary to indicate that it has delusion. Okay, this is one of the characteristics. For example, audio delusion or visual delusion. Another part is whether it cause social or occupation dysfunction. And another thing is about the duration, how long that hallucination or a delusion lasts. And then other psychoaffective mood disorder, substance general medical condition, exclusion, relationship to perceived developmental disorder, etc. There are a number of six of them, 6 characteristics. In terms of Abraham, criteria A might theoretically be fulfilled by the presence of his auditory and visual perceptual experiences. Now, Abraham is not recounted as having had symptoms that now be appreciated as disorganization, catatonia, negative psychotic symptoms, or cognitive difficulties such as impaired concentration, attention, or memory. So Abraham is described as a very able man. He is able to make a lot of money, and he had be able to keep quite a bit of the sheep and cattle and so forth. So he's an able man, but he has some auditory and visual perception delusions, according to here. The lack of detailed information about his life prevents us from understanding whether he experienced a decline in social or occupational functioning as compared with the period before an onset of his perceptual experiences, as required by criteria B. Criteria C's requirement about persistence and duration of the syndrome is fulfilled by the period of 100 years or more during which he had these experiences. His general good health is indicated by a purported lifespan of 175 years. Without mentioning the infirmity, Abraham appeared not to suffer from debilitating, depressive, or manic-like symptoms, thereby diminishing the likelihood of mood disorder associated with psychosis, such as depression or bipolar disorder, etc. But there is a few episodes which is really troublesome. That is in the Genesis chapter 22, verse 2 to 10. This is the verse itself. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Okay, he had a vision. He heard something. Okay, how that vision come upon or how that exhibited, we don't know. But he had a vision, and in that vision, he said he recognized that God said something to him and asked him to sacrifice his only son. And then he acted on it. The problem is he actually acted on it. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When they had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, it lasted at least 2 days now. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood from the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and light. As 2 of them went together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son. The wood and the fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." So he is lying. God told him to use his son as a sacrifice, but now faced with his son, he is lying. He said, okay, son, don't worry, God will provide something. And two of them went together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac. He actually tied his son up and laid him on the altar on the top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. This is seriously psychotic. Of course, the story goes then he had another vision. The angels come and say, no, you don't need to sacrifice your son. God believes you now. And then But if we use the current standard of medical knowledge, this person is seriously problematic. He has psychological problem. He needs to go into a psychiatric institute.
Yeah.
So applying the diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorder paradigm, his auditory and visual perception, experiences, and behavior will be understood as a hallucination, visual hallucination, delusion, religious content, and paranoid type thought content. Is pretty dangerous. Now, today the world is still pretty religious. About these are different times here. In the percentage is the percentage of population. So about 2.2 billion people in 2010 say they believe in some kind of Christian faith. About 1.6 billion people in Islam, about 1 billion in Hinduism, about 500 million in Buddhism, 400 million in different types of folk religions. It represents about 84% of the world population. And it is actually increasing compared with, say, 2000. The number of Christians decreased, but the number of Islam also increased, Hinduism increased, Buddhism. So almost every religion seems to grow over 10 years from 2000 to 2010. So the world, with today's advances in science, the number of people believing in religions still increase. To me, this is remarkable. How can that happen? People should have a much more better understanding of the nature itself. This is a corrected version of the decline of religion from a global value survey website. Initially, they have done some data calculation mistakes because today's doing survey usually done through the web using digital technologies. In a computer screen-based survey and in the smartphone-based survey, the data is coded a little bit differently. And therefore, because of that different coding, it ends up with a wrong interpretation. So this is the corrected result. And on this scale, they are looking at giving up on God. In this result, 2007 to 2019, it seems that in some region of the world, people are more and more people becomes and doesn't believe in God. Okay, in the poor region, there are more and more people believe in God. So the center line is 0. That means there's no change. So on the left hand side, these are places where people are becoming more non-religious. For example, Chile is at the bottom. Australia is second last. That means more and more people in Australia is not starting to not believe in God. Whereas in India, more and more people are believing in God. So this is the scale. We see that most countries are now starting to have a decline in religious persons. But globally, the number of religious people are still increasing. So there's a large difference. The difference is actually for those developed countries, the religious people number are decreasing. But for the developing countries, there are more and more people believing in different religion. So that typically, I think, are related to probably the difficulties of life. When your life is better, you have a better understanding of the nature, a better understanding of science, then you probably will be less religious.
What about Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, I think, is going backwards, especially with the current government. What's the government?
Taliban.
Taliban 2.0. I call it Taliban 2.0.
Yeah.
Taliban 1.0 is very, very strict religious. They say they will be more moderate, but I don't see how moderate they are. They are still pretty strict on their religion. So that's not a good sign. I don't. Anyway. Some religions are called monotheistic. That means they believe in only one God. And these are usually pretty exclusive. For polytheistic religions, they believe in different gods. Then the people tend to be more inclusive. And Abrahamic religions refer to the three religions which refer to the same Old Testament, or the text from Judaism. Judaism is, of course, the oldest Abrahamic religion, originating in the people of the ancient Israel and Judea. So they are basically the Jews. The Quran is their fundamental text and is part of a larger text known as the Hebrew Bible. It is supplemented by oral tradition and written form in later texts such as the Madash and the Tabak. I can't pronounce all this, but now this is the basis of religion, Christianity and Islam. And so in Christianity, these texts I refer to as the Old Testament.
Albert, could I ask you, how far back do we have evidence of a practiced form of religion or cult? Do you know?
It depends on how you consider practice. If we say it is the burial of the dead as a religious activity, then it will date back almost over 1 million years. But if you refer to having a
what about sacrifice?
Religion, then we don't know, because the written history we have is only about, let's say, 4,000 or 5,000 years. But a lot of these religions is from oral history and then later on transcribed into texts. So the oral history might last, say, another 5,000 years or more.
Well, if you looked at sacrifice and homage to a deity, that would be a fairly solid kind of basis, wouldn't it?
Yes, I
to
think
believe
so.
that. Yeah. Well, that would be the Aztecs and the Mayas, and
yeah,
would it?
and then we also see a lot of human sacrifice in the early stage of our human history, isn't it? We have slaves, and then we have human sacrifice, and I think we will associate at least human sacrifice as kind of religious. And then later on, the human sacrifice improves into animal sacrifice. So now, in terms of the dating, some people have already done some research, say, based on the Bible from Adam and Eve, and then count the number of years when they have their next son, and then the next son, and so forth. And then by the time of Abraham, according to the Bible, it will have go through about 1,000 to 2,000 years. And then we can also count from the Abraham to modern times, and then that's why in the medical paper that I quoted, they say roughly 200 BCE. That I think that is based on counting the dates within the Bible. But again, the Bible probably is oral history, and then later on written down. And the problem with oral history is that it is not accurate. People tend to exaggerate. And then as this exaggeration drag on, things can be quite distorted. So we don't know. But I think that's a very good question. How far back our humans become religious? Okay, Christian, Islam, I think we know them quite well. And then there are the Indians religions, Hinduism, Jainism, etc. Buddhism, is that I can't pronounce that word anyway. Let's go to something more interesting, is the relationship between morality and religion. A lot of people say, okay, no matter what the religion does, it always teach people to be good. Is that true? The intersections of morality and religion involve the relationship between the religious views and morals. Many religions have values frameworks regarding personal behavior meant to guide adherents to determine between right and wrong. These include a triple germs of Jainism, Islam's Sharia law, Catholicism's canon law, Buddhism's Eightfold Path, and etc. etc. All these have some holy books which describe what is good and what is bad, or what is right and what is wrong. But unfortunately, many of these had to be interpreted in the modern values. Various sources such as the holy books, oral or written traditions, religious leaders may outline and interpret these frameworks. Some religious systems share tenets with secular value frameworks such as sequentialism, free thought, and utilitarianism, meaning useful.
Like Scientology.
Okay, religion and moral are not synonymous. True religion may depend on morality and even develop alongside morality. Morality does not necessarily depend on religion, despite some making an almost automatic assumption to this effect. One definition sees morality as an active process which, at the very least, the effort to guide one's conduct by reason, that is, doing what there are the best reasons for doing, while giving equal consideration to the interests of those affected by what one does. So with this sentence, I think we come to the two so-called law of moral. One is the golden rule, the other is the silver rule. The golden rule is do what you want to do as you want them to be done to yourself. So this is a positive a positive act. So I like to be kissed, therefore I kiss somebody else, so to speak. Okay, so this is based on yourself as a metric, and then through your feeling to determine whether that action will be good or not to other people. So again, you have to take into consideration of the action of the interest of those affected by your choice. So usually using yourself as a metric. The negative is also using yourself as a metric. Do not do to others what you don't want them to do to yourself. So this is not a negative. That means I don't hurt other people because I don't want to be hurt. Therefore, if I get hurt, I find it difficult for myself to bear, and therefore I don't do it to other people. So again, this is a pretty standard definition of moral. But I will argue that these two standards, the golden rule and the silver rule, do have differences. And the difference is significant in today's. But I will do tend to that a little bit later on. Now, value judgment can vary greatly between and within teachings of various religions, past and present. People with some religious traditions, such as Christianity, might derive ideas of right and wrong from rules and laws set forth in their respective authoritative guides. That means the Bible or their religious leaders. According to a global research done by Gallup on people from 145 countries, adherents of all the major world religions who attended religious service in the past week reported higher rates of generosities, such as donating money, volunteering, and helping a stranger than do their core religious who do not attend services. Okay, it seems that those attend services have a higher tendency to do good. But on another study on the next paragraph, on study on a pro-social sentiments, so that non-religious people were more inclined to show generosity in random acts of kindness, such as lending their possessions and offering a seat on a crowded bus or train. So these two surveys seems to contradict each other. Seems to contradict. One say, okay, those who attend churches or services do donate money, volunteering, and so forth. But on the other hand, no, the another survey doesn't. So I think there are grounds for more investigation into whether religious actually help people to do better. There's a lot of argument here. We haven't able to draw a conclusion. Now, religious values also diverge quite commonly. Some commonly held contemporary moral positions, such as those on murder, mass atrocities, and slavery. A lot of people argue that the Bible condone slavery, at least, and they say the slaves should obey their master. So there is a condolence of slavery. And the Bible also describes a lot of mass atrocities. For example, the story of Noah. The God found that people are now wicked. So he decided to kill all humans, animals, and plants by ordering a flood. Only asking the Noah's family. So Noah's his wife, Noah's 3 sons, and their 3 wives, plus pairs of animals to seek sanctuary in the Noah Ark, and then floods come, kill everybody. So that is mass atrocities. But whether that's true or not, and then whether that's good or not, again, in today's standard, this is indiscriminate murdering of a lot of people. And David Hume state that the greatest crimes have been found in many instances to be compatible with a superstitious piety and devotion. And it's just regarded as unsafe to draw any inference in favor of a man's morals from the vigor, favor, or strictness of his religious exercise. Again, the Taliban, they are very religious. Are they good? Again, depending on their suppression of, for example, the female in their society. Is that good or not? Again, they are very religious. Bertrand Russell said there are also in most religious specific ethical tenets which do define harm. The Catholic condemnation of birth control, if it could prevail, would have made the mitigation of poverty and the abolition of war impossible. The Hindu believes that the cow is a sacred animal and that it is wicked for widows to remarry, cause quite needless suffering. And who is the one in Calcutta? What's her name? One of the Indian nun who said
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. Now, again, there is a lot of criticism of Mother Teresa, saying that he considered suffering at death a way to pay back the debt, to pay back the sin committed in life. And therefore, although she run a lot of clinics for the what's that kind of clinic? The clinics where people are there to die. They are not. She is not offering painkillers in a lot of cases, and this causes an unnecessary suffering.
Her concern was with their soul, not their body.
Yes, and therefore, she let their people's body suffer, and I think that is unnecessary. But anyway, that depends on your moral. Okay. Also, according to Bertrand Russell, clergymen almost necessarily fell in two ways as teachers of moral. They condemn acts which do no harm, and they condone acts which do great harm. He cites an example of a clergyman who was warned by a physician that his wife would die if she had another child, the 10th one, but implemented her regardless, which resulted in her death. No one condemned him. He retained his benefits and married again, so long as the clergyman continued to condone cruelty and condemn innocent pleasure. They do only harm. They can only do harm as guardians of the morals of the young. Again, Russell again, the sense of sin which dominates many children and young people and often lasts on into later lives is a mystery and a source of distortion that serves no useful purpose of any sort or kind. I think he referred to as the original sin. The Adams and Eve was convinced by a snake to eat and fruit from the tree of knowledge, and therefore disobeying God in the command that they shouldn't eat the fruit of that tree. And then God condemned women being the one who introduced the fruit to her husband to painful childbirth, and condemned the snake to crawl on the earth instead of having feet. And men also had to work and sweat in order to find our food in farming. So we have original sin, and I think the original sin, the Christianity say the Jesus' blood is a payment for that sin, and then you believe in Jesus, then we will be rescued. But what about we don't believe in? Why we just believe in Jesus, then we will get salvation? What can we do better than that? Than for example, do some goods rather than just believing in Jesus. Other observers criticize religious moral as incompatible with modern social norms. For example, Richard Dawkins, writing in God Illusion, has stated that religious people have committed a wide variety of acts and held certain beliefs through history that we now consider morally repugnant. He has stated that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis held broadly Christian religious beliefs that inspired the Holocaust on the account of anti-Semitism, Christian doctrine, and that Christian has traditionally imposed unfair restrictions on the legal and civil rights of women, and that Christians have condoned slavery of some form or description throughout most of the Christianity's history. We know slavery has been when the West is able to go to Africa, they started having slaves from Africans, and then, for example, American today was built using slavery, blood and sweat. So, whether religious or not, I think today I have a big attack on religion. Now, I myself is non-religious, so I think all the material I selected have shown that I don't believe in anything. I rather believe in my own moral standard, using myself as a moral yardstick. If something I done will hurt somebody, which if it is done onto myself, which will hurt me, then I try not to do it. Okay, I only say try not to do it sometimes. So this is my stand. I don't know whether you agree or not. I don't know whether anyone of you believe in God or not. But anyway, from a big,
I reckon honesty, integrity is the way to go.
Yeah,
that's my yardstick.
Yeah, integrity. That means you do something you really, yeah.
Well, I suppose I shouldn't say it, but the day I walked out of a church, nothing felt so good. That's me.
Yes. Is that you? Yeah, a comment?
Yes, I think my picture has disappeared, has it?
Yes.
Can you see me?
No, I am seeing some light
space. Oh, I don't know what happened, but I was going to say to you, would you agree at all that religion has largely over the certainly since the beginning of the after Christianity, has served as a social control that was effective in many cases? The fear of punishment in the next life. It kind of did the role of policing to some extent. And the suggestion has been that since the Enlightenment, social control has been less cohesive and manageable.
I agree with you. I think religion do play a very big role in organizing human societies. Of course, once you organize human societies, there are goods and bads, good things and bad things around it. Okay, so the better we organize, the stronger we are. And then sometimes the stronger we are, meaning we are conquering other people, and causing mystery to other people. But so, yes, religion do have its role. But I think by now in the 21st century, the role of religion should now starting to be replaced by our more developed moral stance, rather that moral stance is based on the golden rule of moral or the silver rule. I think it is now a time to start rethinking this. That also comes with a very different view of the government. In Chinese concept, government also have the role of educating the people, to organizing the people in a similar thoughts, like religions organizing people's thought in the same role. But in Western democracy, we believe that this organization is voluntary, chosen by people joining different religion. But in Chinese, we do believe that the government have a obligation to encourage the people to educate themselves to operate with the same philosophical framework. So when you see the Chinese people, the Chinese government sending out propaganda about socialism, we say, oh, this is propaganda by the Chinese. But from the Chinese point of view, there is a way of organizing the Chinese society through socialism. And the government has the obligation to tell the people why the government taking this particular path, and what is this particular path will bring to the Chinese people. So again, to the Western world, it is not acceptable that the Chinese government is doing a lot of propaganda talking about socialism. But for the Chinese people, what else? The government should do it. You don't need to. So I think there's again a cultural aspect. I think I have said that the Chinese culture wants a powerful central government, because historically we need a powerful central government to maintain stability and peace. If the central government is not powerful enough, then different warlords springing up on different parts of China usually cause a lot of mysteries, death and killings. So the Chinese people always say, okay, we hope we have a powerful central government which will provide us with stability, and then with stability, then we can improve our lives. So this is quite different from the Western view that we want our government to be small. But in China, we have to just the opposite way. We want our government to be powerful and large, and interact with us
like a religion
level. Even in the education level, social level, we want the government to be taking part in that. So there is a very interesting different perspective.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for your attention today. So we will see you in China today.
Thank you very
Thank you, Albert.
Bye-bye.
Most
Thanks, Albert.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
much. Bye, Pat.
Everyone.